the only show that's 3 dimensions away from Mad Max Furiosa being called Furiosa the Road Warrior. I'm your host 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Furiosa, released in 2024. Furiosa is a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, and is essentially the first chapter, but like literally the second movie to come out of the Fury Road saga. And essentially, this movie is essentially the origin story of how Furiosa, who was played by Charlize Theron in Fury Road, came to be. So essentially, Furiosa is like an origin story of how she was taken from her homeland, and then how she ended up joining Immortan Joe's gang, and who took her and all this stuff, and how it's like a revenge story almost. The movie is once again directed by George Miller and is written by Lorca Gurados and George Miller, and stars Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Hemsworth, as well as so many other wonderful people that I fucked up names because I didn't read the IMDb list. But the movie also, of course, the movie also stars Tom Burke as well. And so basically, the movie is essentially a prequel, and a lot of people do reprise their roles from Fury Road to play new stuff, like Josh. Josh, I think his name is Josh McDermott. He plays like Scrotus in this movie, and they have a new actor playing Immortan Joe because Hugo Bernkeys passed away in 2020. So when this movie started shooting in 2022. So, obviously, but I mean, he doesn't. Besides the voice, you really can't tell the difference. That's a different actor playing Immortan Joe. I do like that they went to Australia again to shoot it because Mad Max Fury was shot in South Africa. This one is shot in Australia, and I do feel like that also is a good thing and a bad thing. See, the good thing is I do like that how they have basically they try to match the Australian desert landscape, but at the same time they don't have the same areas that they had in Fury Road, so they try to recreate it using CGI. And I feel like one of the best things about Fury Road was they said how much CGI they used was a minimum compared to how much they use in Furiosa, which is they use a lot more. And I think that that's one thing I thought this movie had going for it. This movie had going against it was the CGI, because there were some shots that, like, especially at the beginning of the movie when Furiosa is taken from her world and everything, you could tell, like, especially if they're on a motorcycle, how CGI this looks compared to what this one doesn't. Like when the mom has Furiosa and they're in the cave, going through a cave, that looks so CGI. But like when you're watching like the shots of them on dirt bikes just being chased by the mom, that looks more real. Like especially in the car scenes in the movie, especially the convoy scene looks real, and like there are things that George Miller thrives at in this movie, and I really think that there are things that he doesn't thrive at. And I will say, I think the acting is great. The acting and directing is great. And I understand some people were complaining that Anya Taylor-Joy has 30 lines in the movie, and I'm like, you realize his protagonist in all of his Mad Max movies only have a few lines, because the story around them is the character, the voice, the speaking point. Like they're essentially the lead is essentially the silent mute person, and they're basically the audience in this story of where they don't talk. They basically like just do things. It's almost like a mime class with this character. I mean, Mel Gibson didn't have much lines in the first two Mad Max movies, or in the third movie, and Tom Hardy had like less than 60 lines in this movie. And so Anya Taylor-Joy, I can understand why, because this is a character-driven story that gives character exploration, that does not have the context of okay, she's just talking, giving exposition. You're actually seeing the stuff around you happening in the scene, so he doesn't have to explain everything. And I like that about this. I do like that the action set pieces are amazing in this movie. Like I love when they're trying to when they're heading to the gas town, and then there's the convoy is just destroyed. They're under attack and everything by the biker gang. I mean, that was so cool. And I do like that because it's a rebooted timeline of the Mel Gibson movies, that they try to introduce a new biker gang in this movie, which is teams up with Dementus, and they're kind of the biker gang you see in Fury Road. And their biker gang is kind of they're explaining their origins way. And Dementus is kind of like Toe Cutter in the original Mad Max movie. So essentially, Chris Hemsworth is this bad guy who is, this over eccentric bad guy who, it's fun to watch and he's entertaining. I mean, he basically, goes around telling people, we'll kill you all, you have to overthrow your masters and everything. And then when he gets to Immortan Joe, they start laughing because he'll just use his war voice and to kill you and everything. And so basically, once Dementus realizes that this dude is they're basically suicidal, they'll die for their it's almost a cultish society. So he realizes so basically he gets puts paint on the biker gang and pretends that you're gonna be a war boy now. And then when they go to they sneak into Gas Town. They end up And so they get in there, in which he ended up killing some of the biker gang. That's what kind of derives the two biker gangs, because the movie does have time jumps in the movie, and so basically, with the time jumps, kind of like the only thing I think that's what hurts the movie, because every time they do a time jump, they kind of have to leave some stuff open ended. Like okay, they broke apart. Okay, and okay, Furiosa grows up and joins Immortan Joe's bike, the Raider gang, and stuff like that is where I was like, that's where it kind of not shines, and I do think that it does have. I do like that you give them more backstory of Immortan Joe, and they're the bad guys, but it shows you their origins. And Dementus is kind of like the big baddie of the movie, where Chris Hemsworth, he gets control of Gastown, and then he's doing such a poor pissed job of it that basically Gastown ends up going under. And then of course he's like this is part of his plan, because he wants to retake, wants to take the Citadel, and all this cool stuff and everything. And I really like that aspect of it. I liked how like you get to see the big betrayal when he takes the bullet farm first, and then you see the betrayal. You see like Tom Burke, who plays, he's kind of like the Mad Max character in this movie, where he basically teams up with Furiosa and he helps her out and everything, and he's kind of like that mentor Jedi guide to her. He's kind of like the Qui-Gon Jinn to her. And he doesn't have really any lines in the movie at all either, and so I like him. And then of course his character dies, obviously, and I like that have that. And Chris Hemsworth, of course, is great, and Immortan Joe is great in the movie, and Scrotus and everything. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is really good as Furiosa. She really shines well in this movie. Although the movie has a lot of going for it. It has a lot of great action sequences and everything. I will say the only thing that really hurt me, it was at the end of the movie, was there was a couple things I did not like in this movie. First off, I did not like that it has like chapter sections in the movie where I'm like, no, we didn't need that. Do we really need that? Like, get that out of the way. That's not what we want. We want just to start the movie fresh. We want to start like, hey, we don't have to have, we could do the time jumps without those chapter sections. But every time there's a chapter, I'm like, okay, here's another time jump. And then, of course, there's one scene where Immortan Joe is on their way to destroy Dementus' biker gang. And then, of course, you just see, like, a montage of the Warriors just throwing stuff, and then cars blowing up and everything, and I'm just like... And then it shows you the aftermath of the battle, and I guess because they ran out of money, so they were just like, this is good. And, there's a saying when Fury Road was happening, that, like, they shot most of the movie, but then there's stuff they had left over to shoot. And then once a new executive at Warner Bros., Kevin DeJahar, came in, he basically told him to go back and finish the movie. If someone told me they had shot most of the movie, but then they left the movie they left some parts like unfinished, and they just said, "Oh, we got to finish the movie before release date," I would believe that, because I honestly feel like okay, they had a good sequence planned out, but then they're like, we don't have no money, so we can't finish filming, so they're like, just do it, like we'll just figure something out, and I think that's what it is, because we never see like I'm like, I would love to have seen that big battle between Chris Hemsworth getting ambushed and his men, because he's like this big baddie that talks up a big game. And I do like that, he literally, like, there's even one person in the movie, like his wife plays two roles. So she plays one of the women at the garden at the beginning of the movie that ends up shooting a couple of, the biker gang and sniper rifles. And then she plays like this one biker that kills a bunch. She's basically loyal to like Dementus, and then she ends up getting killed, of course, in the movie once, like later on in the movie. And I thought she was great in the movie as a henchman. And I just think that the only thing I didn't like was that, and I also really don't like the fact is they do a montage of how Dementus dies. Like, oh, she shoots him in the head. And then, then of course she lets him suffer like her mom did on like a little X. And then of course the last one, which I think is the actual one, is where she puts him in a garden and lets a tree grow through him. So I'm like, well, I guess, whatever. And I was like, that's stupid. And those are the three things I didn't like about them. I did really like the action. The action is fantastic. I know the Junkie XL score is not as good as the one in Fury Road, but I do like his score and how he uses subtitles of Brothers in Arms throughout the movie. And I do like at the end of the movie how it leads up into Fury Road, like her rescuing Immortan Joe's brides and them escaping. I thought that was great. And I don't know if there was a cameo. I'm pretty sure it's not a cameo by Charlize Theron. But it does look like, it's an older Furiosa. I think it's probably just Charlize Theron's body double. And she basically, rescues them at the end. And then, of course, they show footage from Fury Road. Basically, throughout the credits, you're seeing the Fury Road clips. And I thought that was really well done. I sat there and watched the credits, and I'm like, oh, yes. You know, which kind of defeated the purpose because now you don't have to watch Furiosa because you're like, hey, the credits did it for me. But I thought this was a good film. I really enjoyed it. I really love this movie. I highly recommend it. This is one of the best movies of the summer. If you have not seen it yet, it's perfect. Besides there's a few minor things I didn't like, I think overall this movie is mostly a fun time at the movies, and it's a damn good action film. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a solid A. Thank you so much.
But in you to make it epic.